The Lost Years of Jesus, Hidden Lessons for Our Faith Journey. Imagine for a moment a story about someone we all know well, a person whose life changed the course of history. Yet, there is a part of this story that remains largely untold, a mysterious gap in the timeline of his life. We know the beginning, a humble birth in a manger, heralded by angels and visited by wise men. We know the end, his death on a cross, followed by a resurrection that changed everything. But what about those years in between? The ones we often refer to as the lost years. You may be wondering, why are these years so significant? After all, they are largely silent in the pages of the Bible. What could possibly be learned from this period of time when Jesus, who would later perform miracles, heal the sick, and challenge the very religious system of his time, was living a quiet life in Nazareth, working as a carpenter and growing in wisdom and stature? These lost years are not just a gap in history. They hold a profound lesson for us, one that speaks to the core of our faith journey. Often we expect our lives to be filled with action, with signs, with miracles and immediate results. We want to see God's work right away. We want to experience His presence and His plans unfolding before our eyes. But sometimes, God's work is done quietly, in the hidden places, in the years when nothing seems to be happening on the surface. It's in these moments of quiet waiting that God is preparing us for something greater. Jesus spent about 30 years in relative obscurity, and in those years, He wasn't idle. He wasn't simply waiting for the right time to begin His ministry. He was being shaped, refined, and prepared for the monumental task that lay ahead. The lost years were not wasted. They were essential. And through His life, we learn a powerful lesson about faith and waiting. We're so often told that waiting is a waste of time, that we should always be striving, always be moving forward, always be seeing results. But what if I told you that some of the most important work God does in our lives happens when we think nothing is happening at all? What if the silent, seemingly uneventful moments of our lives are the very ones that shape us into who God is calling us to be? Today I want to take you on a journey through those years. Let's look at the moments that the Bible leaves unsaid, the hidden years that were anything but insignificant. We will reflect on how Jesus' time of waiting, His time of preparation, is not just an event in history, but a model for each of us. His story invites us to trust God when the path isn't clear, to have faith when we can't see the full picture, and to believe that God's timing is always perfect, even when we feel invisible or unseen. As we explore these lost years, I encourage you to think about your own life. Do you ever feel like you're in a season of waiting where nothing seems to be happening? Are there moments when you wonder if God has forgotten about you, or if your time will ever come? If so, take heart. The story of Jesus' hidden years is a story of hope, a story of faith, and a story of God's perfect plan unfolding in ways we cannot always understand. So let's dive into the mystery of Jesus' lost years and uncover the lessons that can speak to our lives today. The waiting, the silence, the preparation, it all matters. Just like it mattered for Him, it matters for you. The question is not whether God is working, but whether we will trust Him in the quiet moments, even when it seems like nothing is happening. Part 1. Historical context of Jesus' early life. Let's take a step back for a moment and look at the world Jesus was born into. We all know the story of His miraculous birth, how Mary and Joseph were in Bethlehem, and angels announced His arrival to shepherds. It's a beautiful beginning, one full of hope and promise. But after that incredible moment, there's a gap, a silence in the story, and that silence speaks volumes about the world Jesus was entering. The time Jesus was born into was a world filled with tension. The Roman Empire had conquered much of the known world, including Israel. Roman soldiers patrolled the streets, and Jewish people lived under the constant threat of Roman authority. Yet they longed for a Messiah, someone who would come and overthrow the Roman rule and restore the kingdom of Israel. They were waiting for a king, a ruler, a conqueror who would change their circumstances. But Jesus didn't come as the king they expected. Instead, He grew up in a humble home in the small town of Nazareth. His family was far from wealthy, and His father, Joseph, worked as a carpenter. Nazareth was a place that didn't attract much attention, and in those days, it was often looked down upon. Nothing in Jesus' early life suggested that he would one day become the Savior of the world. There's a beauty in this simplicity, though. The Son of God, the Creator of the universe, didn't come with a grand entrance. He didn't demand recognition or attention. Instead, he spent his early years growing, learning, and living a life that seemed completely ordinary to those around him. It's almost as if he was invisible to the world, hidden in plain sight. The scriptures tell us that during these years, Jesus grew in wisdom and stature, and in favor with God and man. What does that mean? It means that even though the world didn't recognize him, he was still being shaped. He wasn't just learning how to live, he was learning the ways of the Father, and the world was unaware of the profound work being done in those quiet years. At the same time, his mother Mary must have wondered how all of this would unfold. Imagine being the mother of Jesus, knowing the angel's message, that her son would be called the Son of the Most High. But how would this come to pass? When would he begin his ministry? What did those hidden years mean for her, for Joseph, for the world? For a long time, nothing happened publicly. The world moved on, as it always does, seemingly unaffected by the quiet life being lived in Nazareth. But even in this silence, there was preparation. Even in the hidden years, Jesus was preparing for his mission. God wasn't absent during this time. He was actively working in Jesus' life, even though no one could see it. It's easy to think that if we're not seeing results or making a noticeable impact, we're wasting time. But the reality is that many times, God is working in the unseen, in the quiet spaces, in the moments when we're not looking for recognition. I want to encourage you, if you're in a season where things feel quiet, where nothing seems to be moving, remember this: God is still at work. Just as Jesus wasn't idle in Nazareth, neither are you. The waiting period is not a waste, it's part of the process. And in that process, you're growing, you're being shaped, you're being prepared for the next step in the journey that God has for you. As we reflect on these early years of Jesus, we learn something crucial. God's timing is perfect. He wasn't in a hurry to make Jesus known to the world because Jesus wasn't yet ready to fulfill his mission. It's hard for us to grasp this, especially when we live in a world that expects immediate results, instant fame, and quick answers. But just as Jesus waited for the right time, we too must trust that God's timing for our lives is perfect. Imagine how many times Jesus must have been overlooked, misunderstood, or even ignored. Yet in those moments, he was being prepared. And so too in our quiet seasons, we are being prepared, sometimes without even knowing it. It may feel like nothing is happening, but there's always something happening in God's hands. God is shaping us in ways we can't always see. It's not about the applause or the recognition, but about the growth that happens in the silence. Jesus' hidden years remind us that the most important work is often done in the places where no one is watching. So don't despise the quiet times. Don't rush through the waiting periods, embrace them, knowing that even in the silence, God is preparing you for something beautiful. Part 2. Faith in the Unseen, the Power of Silence. Have you ever been in a season of life where it feels like nothing is happening? Maybe you're praying, waiting, hoping for something to change, and yet day after day, you don't see the breakthrough you're longing for. It's easy to feel like nothing is working, to question if God even hears you, and to wonder if your prayers are just falling into a void. But what if I told you that sometimes the most powerful work God does is in the silence, in the unseen, moments that seem so insignificant? Think about it. Jesus, the Son of God, spent a large part of his early life in complete obscurity. His ministry didn't start in a grand palace or a bustling city. It started in a small town, in a carpenter's workshop, in a life that most people would overlook. In those years, he wasn't performing miracles, preaching to crowds, or revealing the glory of God to the world. He was quietly growing, learning, and preparing. Sometimes we forget that. We look at Jesus' ministry and his ultimate sacrifice on the cross, and we're amazed at the miracles, the teachings, and the way he turned the world upside down. But we overlook the years in Nazareth. We overlook the silence, the waiting, the seemingly ordinary days where nothing outwardly extraordinary was happening. But here's the thing. In those years, Jesus wasn't being idle. He wasn't waiting for some grand event to happen. He was being shaped, being prepared for the purpose he came to fulfill. In the same way, when we're in seasons of waiting, we often think that God is distant or inactive. But the reality is, God is working in the unseen. He is shaping us in ways we can't fully understand or appreciate at the time. Maybe you're in a season where nothing feels like it's moving forward, where you feel overlooked or forgotten. You may feel like you're in the silent years of your life. But don't underestimate the power of silence. Think of the way a seed grows underground before it ever breaks through the soil. The roots are being established. The foundation is being laid, even though we can't see any progress above the surface. So much is happening in those hidden moments. And eventually, when the time is right, the seed will burst forth into new life. But all that growth happens in the unseen. This is where faith comes in. Faith is trusting that even when we don't see immediate results, God is still at work. He's working behind the scenes. He's preparing us, strengthening us, and building in us the character and resilience we need for what's ahead. It's not always about what we can see or measure in the moment. It's about trusting that God is doing something deeper inside of us, even if it's hidden from our view. Jesus' time in Nazareth was a powerful reminder that not every moment of growth is visible. We often want to see the big things happen right away. We want instant results. But the quiet moments of preparation are just as important as the moments of visible achievement. In fact, those quiet moments are the ones that equip us for what's to come. Take a moment and reflect on your own life. Have you been in a season of waiting, where it felt like nothing was happening? Have you ever felt like your efforts were going unnoticed? Maybe you've been praying for a breakthrough, but nothing seems to be changing. I want to encourage you today. Don't give up in the silence. Don't believe the lie that nothing is happening just because you can't see it. God is working in the unseen, and He is preparing you for something greater. Jesus didn't step into His public ministry until He was ready. He didn't rush into His calling. He waited for God's perfect timing. And in that waiting, He was being shaped. Just as Jesus trusted in the silence, we must trust that God is at work, even when we don't understand what's happening. In the waiting, we grow. In the quiet, we are being prepared for the next chapter. So let's take heart and trust in the process, knowing that even in the silent years, God is working in ways we can't always see. And when the time is right, when we are fully prepared, He will reveal His plan in ways that will astound us. Just like the seed that grows in secret, we too are growing, even when it seems like nothing is happening. Part 3. Lessons from Jesus' youth. Faithful in the small things. As we continue on this journey through the lost years of Jesus, it's important to stop and reflect on something deeply significant: His humble beginnings. Jesus didn't start His ministry in a palace or with a grand announcement. He didn't have an elaborate entourage or any fanfare. Instead, He spent His early years working as a carpenter, living an ordinary life in the quiet town of Nazareth. And yet there's something incredibly powerful in that simplicity. When we think of Jesus, we often think of His miracles, His powerful teachings, and His ability to heal the sick and raise the dead. But we tend to overlook the smaller, quieter moments of His life. Jesus didn't rush to the stage. He didn't jump straight into performing miracles. He was faithful in the small things. There's a powerful lesson in this. Jesus, the Son of God, was willing to spend years in a humble workshop, learning the trade of a carpenter. He wasn't too important to work with His hands, to do the ordinary things. He didn't see His time in the carpenter's shop as a waste. He saw it as a part of His preparation. It's easy to think that the big moments, those moments of public ministry, the healing of the sick, the miracles, are the ones that matter most. But what Jesus teaches us through His life is that faithfulness in the small things matters just as much, if not more. Think about it. Jesus wasn't waiting for a stage. He didn't need fame or recognition. He spent His time faithfully serving in His community, doing work that no one would ever praise or applaud. And yet, in those years, He was being shaped, learning to serve, learning humility, and preparing His heart for the greater things to come. This is something we often forget in our own lives. We're living in a world that constantly encourages us to aim for the big things. We want to be recognized, to be seen, to have our efforts validated. We want the applause. We want the grand achievements. But Jesus shows us that true greatness is found in faithfulness, even when no one is watching. The work you do today, the seemingly small things, the quiet acts of service, are preparing you for something greater. Maybe you're in a season where you feel like your efforts are unnoticed. Perhaps you're working hard, doing things that seem unimportant or insignificant. You're pouring your heart into your work, but no one seems to recognize it. The world might not see you, but God does, and He is using these small moments to shape you, to prepare you for something much greater. It's in the small things that character is built. It's in the quiet, faithful moments that God is doing His most important work in us. Jesus teaches us that greatness isn't about being noticed. It's about being faithful. It's about showing up, doing the work, and trusting that God is at work in us, even in the small, seemingly insignificant things. He didn't need a microphone, a platform, or a crowd. He just needed to be faithful in the small things. And in those small things, He was preparing for a ministry that would change the world. If you're feeling like the work you're doing is small or unnoticed, I want to encourage you today. Don't despise these moments. Don't underestimate the power of being faithful in the small things. Whether you're a parent, a student, a worker, or anyone else, the quiet faithfulness you show in your everyday life is a powerful testimony. God sees it. He knows the work you're doing, and He is using it to shape you for something greater. Jesus' life reminds us that greatness is not found in the grand moments. It's found in the faithful, quiet moments, when no one is watching. It's in the simple acts of service, the moments of obedience, and the work we do when no one is there to applaud us. Those are the moments that matter most. They are the moments that God uses to prepare us for the greater things He has planned for us. So as you go through your day-to-day life, remember that the small things matter. Every act of faithfulness, every moment of service, every quiet decision to do what's right even when no one sees is preparing you for something greater. Jesus shows us that true greatness is found in the ordinary, and that's something we can all aspire to. Part 4. Theological Reflections on the Hidden Years. As we continue reflecting on Jesus' life, particularly His hidden years, there's a deeper lesson that we must embrace, one that touches on the very heart of our faith. Theologically, the hidden years of Jesus speak to a powerful truth. God's timing is everything, and He is always at work, even when we don't see it. We live in a culture that loves to rush. Everything is expected to happen quickly. We want answers now. We want results fast. But Jesus' life, especially the quiet years in Nazareth, teaches us a different way. The God of the universe, who could have stepped into the world with immediate glory and power, chose to wait. He chose to prepare Himself in the hidden places, trusting that God's plan for His life would unfold exactly when it was meant to. This is so important for us today. We often find ourselves in seasons of waiting, in times where it feels like nothing is happening. We might pray for something, and when it doesn't come right away, we start to feel like God has forgotten us. But just as Jesus didn't rush into His ministry, we are reminded that waiting is not a sign of delay. It is a necessary part of preparation. In our waiting, we are being shaped, refined, and made ready for the next chapter of our lives. Think of it this way. Sometimes the most important work in our lives is being done in the background. It's in the silence, in the moments when we feel unnoticed, that God is preparing us. Just like Jesus, who spent years in Nazareth preparing for His public ministry, we too are in a process. God is molding us, strengthening us, teaching us humility, and getting us ready for the bigger things He has in store. It's easy to become impatient when we don't see the fruits of our labor right away. But we have to trust that God knows the perfect timing for everything. Jesus' years in Nazareth weren't wasted years. They were part of God's perfect plan. He didn't rush the process. He didn't jump ahead to the glory and miracles. He waited for the appointed time, knowing that everything would unfold exactly as God intended. This truth about God's perfect timing can be hard to accept, especially when we live in a world that demands instant gratification. But the message of Jesus' hidden years is a reminder that God works in His time, not ours. And that's a good thing. It's in the waiting that we often grow the most. It's in the quiet moments that God prepares us for the bigger things ahead. Think about your own life. Are there areas where you feel like you're in a holding pattern? Maybe you're waiting for a job, for a relationship, for a breakthrough, or for something else that you feel is just out of reach. I want to encourage you to trust that even in the waiting, God is working. Even in the quiet, unseen moments, God is preparing you for what's next. You may not see it right now, but He is at work, shaping you for His purpose. Just like Jesus didn't rush His calling, we need to learn to trust God's timing for our own lives. He's not ignoring you. He's not neglecting your prayers. He's preparing you. He's working in you, shaping you, and getting you ready for the plan He has. And just like Jesus, when the time is right, you will step into your calling and your purpose with everything you've been through leading up to that moment. So if you're in a season of waiting, take a deep breath and remember that God's timing is perfect. The hidden years are not a waste. They are part of the plan. And when the time is right, you will see the fruit of all the preparation that has happened behind the scenes. Trust that God is at work in your life, even when you can't see it. Just like with Jesus, He's preparing you for something greater than you can imagine. Part 5. Jesus returned to Jerusalem, the first glimpse of His public ministry. As we continue to walk through the life of Jesus, we now come to a pivotal moment, the first glimpse of His public ministry. It's a moment that, while brief, carries tremendous significance. At the age of 12, Jesus travels with His family to Jerusalem for the Passover festival, an event that would change everything. Though Jesus' ministry would not fully begin for many more years, this moment offers us an early look into His divine purpose. Let's pause for a moment and reflect on the scene. The Passover festival was a time of great importance in Jewish culture. Families gathered in Jerusalem to celebrate God's deliverance of the Israelites from Egypt. It was a time of reflection, celebration, and deep religious significance. Jesus, still a young boy, was traveling with his parents to this great festival, just like many other Jewish families at the time. But something remarkable happens during this trip. After the festival, Mary and Joseph begin their journey home, assuming Jesus is traveling with them. But after a day's journey, they realize He's missing. Panicked, they return to Jerusalem, searching for Him. After 3 days, they find Him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them, and asking questions. And what strikes them, and everyone who hears Him, is His profound understanding. The teachers of the law are amazed at His wisdom, and His parents are left in awe of His knowledge. When Mary asks Him why He stayed behind, Jesus' response is simple yet powerful. "Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" In that moment, Jesus gives us a glimpse of His divine awareness. At the age of 12, He already knew His purpose. He understood that He was not just a child, He was the Son of God, destined for something greater than anyone could fully comprehend at the time. This moment is crucial for a few reasons. First, it shows us that Jesus was never just a passive participant in His life. Even in His youth, He was aware of His calling. He wasn't waiting for a future revelation. He already knew His identity. This is a profound truth for us today. It reminds us that even in our younger years, even when we feel unprepared or unsure, God is already at work within us, shaping our understanding of who we are and what we're meant to do. Secondly, Jesus' return to Jerusalem shows us the importance of seeking God's wisdom. In the temple, He isn't just speaking or teaching. He's listening. He's sitting at the feet of the teachers, asking questions and engaging in meaningful dialogue. This demonstrates that wisdom doesn't come from knowing everything, but from humbly seeking knowledge, asking questions, and listening. In our own lives, we often feel the pressure to have all the answers, to know everything right away. But Jesus shows us that wisdom comes from a place of humility, acknowledging that we don't have all the answers, but trusting that God will reveal them in His time. This moment also highlights the importance of being in God's presence. Jesus' words, "I had to be in my Father's house," are a reminder that for Him, being in the presence of God was not just an option, it was a necessity. It was in the temple, in God's house, that he found purpose and direction. And for us, too, being in God's presence, whether through prayer, worship, or the study of Scripture, gives us clarity about who we are and what we are called to do. Finally, this story is a beautiful reminder that even the small moments, even the quiet years of preparation, are part of God's plan. Jesus didn't immediately begin his ministry after this event. In fact, we know very little about what happened in the years following this moment. But this trip to the temple marks the beginning of Jesus' public awareness of his divine purpose. It's a small moment, but one that is foundational for everything that would come afterward. We, too, have moments in our lives when we catch a glimpse of our purpose, when we feel God stirring something in our hearts, when we understand a little more of who we are and what we're meant to do. These moments may not always come with a loud declaration or grand event. Sometimes they come in quiet reflections and small realizations that build over time. And just like Jesus, those moments give us the foundation for what is to come. As you reflect on your own life, think about the moments when God revealed something to you, maybe not in a grand, dramatic way, but in a quiet, small moment of clarity. These are the moments that shape us, that prepare us for the bigger things ahead. And just as Jesus returned to Nazareth to continue his preparation, we too are in a process. We are being shaped, even in the moments when we don't fully understand what God is doing. In Jesus' early years, we see the power of small moments that build up to something far greater. So if you're in a season of quiet preparation, know that God is still working in your life. Your time will come. Just as Jesus knew his purpose at a young age, God is preparing you for the next step in your journey. Trust that he is working in the small moments, in the quiet years, and that when the time is right, he will reveal your purpose in a way that will transform everything. Part 6. The significance of the lost years. As we reflect on Jesus' hidden years, we must pause and ask ourselves, what do these years mean for us today? We live in a world that's constantly rushing toward the next big thing. We measure success by visible outcomes, by what can be seen, counted, and celebrated. But the hidden years of Jesus teach us something profound. Not everything that matters is immediately visible. Not every moment of growth is something the world can see or appreciate. Sometimes, the most important work happens in the silence, in the quiet moments that no one notices. For many of us, the lost years can feel like the seasons of life where nothing is happening. Maybe you're in a waiting period, waiting for a job, waiting for a relationship to grow, waiting for a breakthrough in your personal or spiritual life. The time feels long, and you might wonder if all your efforts are in vain. But what if, like Jesus, those waiting years are just as important as the moments of public ministry? What if the silence is where the most important work is done? Jesus' quiet years remind us that the foundation for something great is often built in hidden, unseen ways. These years were not wasted years, they were years of preparation, and they are a model for us. The waiting, the uncertainty, and even the seeming lack of progress in our own lives can be moments of growth, moments where God is quietly shaping us for something greater. In these quiet seasons, we learn patience, humility, and trust. And when the time is right, just as with Jesus, the preparation will make us ready for the purpose God has for us. We often struggle with waiting. We want everything to happen now, and when things don't go according to our timeline, it's easy to lose heart. But Jesus teaches us that waiting is not a sign of delay. It's part of God's perfect plan. The unseen years are not wasted years. They are the years where God is working beneath the surface, and when the time comes, we'll be ready. The world may not see our preparation, but God does, and he is using every moment to shape us into the person we're called to be. In your own life, take a moment to reflect on your waiting seasons. Are there areas where you've been feeling like you're in a holding pattern, where you don't see the fruit of your labor yet? Remember that God is working. Trust that the years of preparation are not wasted, even if they feel silent. Jesus' lost years are a reminder that God is always at work, even when we can't see it. Part 7. Jesus' ministry and fulfillment of his mission. The quiet years were necessary for Jesus. They were a time of growth, of preparation, and of learning what he needed to know for his public ministry. And when the time finally came, when Jesus stepped out into the world and began his ministry, everything fell into place. The foundation had been laid, the lessons had been learned, and the character had been built. It was his time, and the world was about to see the fulfillment of his mission. Jesus didn't rush the process. He didn't force his way into the world's stage before he was ready. When he began his public ministry, he did so with a deep sense of purpose and clarity. His first act was to be baptized by John in the Jordan River, a powerful moment where the heavens opened and God declared, "This is my Son whom I love. With him I am well pleased." This was the moment of public revelation. Jesus was stepping into his calling, and the world would soon know the magnitude of his mission. But what's so profound about Jesus' ministry is how he fulfilled it with grace, humility, and deep compassion. From the very beginning, he wasn't seeking fame or recognition. He wasn't trying to build a kingdom of earthly power. Instead, he healed the sick, gave sight to the blind, and preached the good news to the poor. He spent time with those on the margins of society, the outcasts, the sinners, the forgotten ones, and in doing so, he showed us the heart of God. In our own lives, we too are called to fulfill a mission. We may not be called to heal the sick or perform miracles, but we are called to serve, to love, and to live out our faith in the world. Jesus' public ministry is a model for how we are to live. It's not about seeking recognition or fame. It's about serving others with humility and love. It's about living out our purpose even if the world doesn't always understand it. As we move through our lives, we might feel the same kind of tension that Jesus felt in those early years. We're waiting for the moment when everything will come together, when our purpose will be revealed to the world. But like Jesus, we must trust in God's timing. We must know that the waiting periods, the quiet years, and the unseen moments are not in vain. They are the preparation for the fulfillment of our mission. And when our moment comes, when we step into the purpose God has for us, we can do so with confidence, knowing that He has been preparing us all along. Just as Jesus didn't rush His mission but waited for the perfect time, we too must trust in God's perfect timing for our lives. When we walk in obedience and trust, the fulfillment of our mission will come in ways that align perfectly with God's plan for us. So, if you're in a season of preparation, take heart. Your time will come. The foundation is being laid. God is working in the unseen, and when the moment is right, you will step into your calling with clarity and purpose. Just as Jesus' mission was revealed in God's perfect timing, so too will yours be. Trust that the quiet years, the hidden moments, and the waiting seasons are preparing you for something far greater than you can imagine. And when your time comes, you will fulfill your mission with the same grace and humility that Jesus showed us. Part 8. How Jesus' lost years shape our faith. As we bring our journey through Jesus' life and the hidden years to a close, it's time to pause and reflect on the incredible lessons these years offer us. When we first think about Jesus' life, we're often drawn to the dramatic moments, the miracles, the crowds, the teaching, and of course, His ultimate sacrifice. But those years of waiting, of quiet preparation, have as much to teach us as anything that followed. In fact, without them, the moments of His public ministry might not have carried the same depth or significance. Jesus' hidden years teach us something incredibly valuable about faith. That sometimes, faith isn't about seeing results right away. It's about trusting that God is at work even when we can't see what He's doing. Just like Jesus' years in Nazareth, there are seasons in our lives that may feel like nothing is happening. We pray, we hope, we wait, but the breakthroughs don't seem to come. It's easy to become frustrated in those moments, to feel like we're doing something wrong, or that God isn't listening. But Jesus shows us that those seasons of waiting are never wasted. Even in the quiet years, God is working. We might not always understand what He's doing in the moment, but when the time is right, He will reveal the fruits of our waiting. The most powerful moments in Jesus' ministry, the healings, the teachings, the miracles, were built on the foundation of those quiet years. Those moments didn't just come from nowhere. They came from a life of preparation, of growing in wisdom, of humbling himself in the small things. In our own lives, we often wish we could fast forward to the exciting parts, the moments of success, the moments of breakthrough, the moments when everything comes together. But the story of Jesus reminds us that those quiet years are just as important as the public moments. It's in the quiet that our character is built, our faith is deepened, and our trust in God's plan grows. The waiting periods may seem long, but they are part of God's perfect plan for us. Maybe right now you find yourself in a season of waiting, of quiet preparation. Perhaps you're working hard, praying hard, hoping for something to change, but it seems like nothing is happening. Take heart. God is still working. Just as he worked in the silence of Jesus' life, he is working in yours. Trust that in these moments, God is shaping you for the greater things to come. And when the time is right, just as with Jesus, he will reveal his plan in ways that will change everything. So as we reflect on the hidden years of Jesus, let's remember that faith is not always about seeing immediate results. It's about trusting that God is preparing us, even in the quiet moments. The waiting is not wasted. It is a season of growth, and in God's perfect timing, everything will come together. Conclusion: trusting in God's perfect plan. As we come to the end of this journey through Jesus' hidden years, one truth stands out above all. God's plan for us is perfect. It's not always the plan we expect or the plan we would choose for ourselves, but it is perfect nonetheless. Jesus' life, from his birth to his hidden years to the powerful moments of his ministry, reminds us that God's timing and preparation are always just right. When we look at Jesus' journey, we see how each part of his life was woven together with purpose. The quiet years in Nazareth were not just a waiting period, they were a season of preparation. Jesus didn't rush into his ministry. He trusted that God had a perfect plan for his life, and he waited for the right time. Even in those hidden years, God was working in ways that would set the stage for the ministry that would change the world. For us, the lesson is the same: trust in God's perfect plan. We may not always understand why we're in a season of waiting or why things aren't moving as quickly as we'd like. But just like Jesus, we can trust that God is working behind the scenes, preparing us for something greater. It's in the waiting that we grow, in the silence that we learn to trust, and in the unseen moments that we are shaped for our purpose. Maybe right now, you're in a season where you feel like you're in the dark, waiting for something to change. It might feel like nothing is happening, but I encourage you today to take a step back and trust that God has a perfect plan for you. Just as he shaped Jesus in those hidden years, he is shaping you now. Your waiting is not in vain. God is preparing you for something beautiful, and when the time is right, he will reveal it in ways that will surprise and amaze you. So as you continue your journey, remember this: God's timing is always perfect. The waiting seasons, the quiet moments, the preparation periods, they are all part of his perfect plan for your life. Trust in his process, knowing that every step is leading you closer to the purpose he has for you. Just like with Jesus, when the time comes, everything will come together in a way that will reveal his glory and fulfill his plan for your life. Keep trusting, keep waiting, and know that God is at work, even when you can't see it. His perfect plan is unfolding, and you are right where you need to be.